to our Q&A, Hurricane Melissa, here at the Weather Network. I'm Kim McDonald. We've got storm hunter Mark Robinson. We also have meteorologist Nicole Karkic. We are getting into the nitty-gritty of this Category 5 hurricane, which will have devastating impacts if the forecast pans out for the country of Jamaica and beyond. So we know that you have a lot of questions as well. But Mark, I'm going to start with this video because if you don't know Jamaica very well, it has a network of gullies, especially around Kingston. And normally these gullies are dry. They're made of concrete. People drive through them when they're dry, but these gullies are made for storms like this so that the water can go right through them. So this is what they've been up to. They've been clearing out the gullies. Often they'll get garbage in the gullies. So they were doing a little bit of prep work there. Right
yeah,
there.
I mean, so often, you see when I'm down in hurricane areas, it's concrete, it's, these gullies, you do see them. It's designed to, shuffle that water away as fast as possible. But because you don't get this kind of event all the time, those gullies can fill up. You've got to have it cleared. You've got to have it ready. In some ways, Melissa's giving Jamaica a little bit of time to get ready, but got to be prepared because that north turn is beginning now. It's actually beginning in about the last hour or so.
Yeah, this is an emergency situation. The NHC has talked about this in terms of catastrophic, of communication completely breaking down, airports closing, that kind of thing. This is a look at the satellite shot right now. We've seen a very defined eye with this storm, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, you can see like right here. I want to show you right here. The winds aren't all the way out here, the strongest. The winds are the strongest right around that eye. And when you see that eye that clear and that perfectly symmetrical, that tells you this is an extraordinarily powerful storm. And that's exactly, what we don't want to see when it's this close to landfall. And of course, it does not look. There's nothing really in the way to have any sort of major weakening between where it is now and its landfall in Jamaica.
Jamaica will be the thing that can slow it down, can break it up, can weaken it a bit because this is very hilly terrain across the island of Jamaica. But as you say, before it gets there, there's nothing to slow it down. These are very warm waters in the Caribbean, a couple degrees above normal. Melissa's a Category 5 with wind speeds of 280 kilometers per hour. When we talk about Jamaica and hurricanes, the name's Gilbert, the name's Wilma, these are big names, and now it will be Melissa that will go down in history.
Yeah, I mean, when I've talked to people, we all, especially people from Jamaica, they're talking about Gilbert being the benchmark. And everyone talks about Gilbert, that's the one they're talking about. This, unfortunately, I think is going to change the benchmark. This one is going to be the one we're going to be talking about for a very long period of time, just given its strength, given its track, and given its slow motion. That, I think, is going to be a big part of this. Because of that slow motion, there's going to be a tremendous amount of rain falling on that island. And as you said, it's fairly mountainous. It's fairly tall mountain. So a lot of that water is going to get literally wrung out of the hurricane, dumped directly on the island.
Mudslides, landslides, flooding.
Even the infrastructure they've got down there, it can, how much can it handle? I don't think anybody's really built to have 3 feet of water land on top of a watershed.
No, it's going to be brutal.
Yeah.
We had so many questions from you, so we're going to try to get through as many as possible over the next 45 minutes or so. Are airlines evacuating tourists from areas that will be impacted? It's a big question. Canadians not only have a lot of family in Jamaica, but it's one of those favorite spots to travel to. And you know firsthand what's going on.
Yeah, I actually, my wife's cousin and his brother, his half-brother, they're actually in Montego Bay at one of the resorts. We've been calling them sort of on a regular basis, texting them. I literally heard my phone buzz right now, and that's literally, I think, Jason texting me about what's going on. I've been sort of trying to coach him through this because, like, I can probably handle a hurricane like this because I've been through 28 of them.
Yes.
Trying to get your family, just to know your family's down there and try to get them, through and try to explain what is on the way it hits home a little bit. But the one thing I'm going to say, they can leave, like they can get out afterwards. It's the people that are living there that I'm much more concerned about.
And when we want to answer this question, are airlines evacuating tourists? So the airports are closed now. That's it. We've got 2 international airports in Jamaica. They are both closed. I know that your wife's cousin couldn't get out yesterday. All the planes were full. There was no escaping. Now, Nicole, you know Jamaica well as a tourist too. So let's get into where the most popular tourist areas are in Jamaica and what we anticipate for them with this particular storm.
All right, that was definitely one of the questions. People are wondering if tourist destinations will be impacted. We take a look at the track, and the track is showing that Category 5, it's at a Category 5, the highest on the scale. It deepened in pressure so rapidly from Saturday to Sunday. Within 24 hours, it jumped from a tropical storm to a major hurricane. So in its path, it's expected to remain that status of a Category 5 hurricane, making landfall as a 5 and then transitioning to a Category 4. It's making landfall on the south end of the island. One of the most popular tourist destination sort of stretches is from Negril, which is on the west coast, to Montego Bay to Ocho Rios. Very populated in terms of the restaurants, the resorts, which are right perched on the water. Kingston, of course, the capital, majorly populated. We see this pushing through overnight to early morning in the south, but it will have impacts as it departs the island and winds hit certainly the tourist destination. Regardless of where you are, there will be impacts on the island. Who's getting the worst? Well, in terms of the rain, it is going to be Kingston and the south coast that gets upwards of a meter, which is 1,000 millimeters of rainfall. This will be catastrophic, causing landslides, life-threatening. These are the words that are being used in the statements from the National Hurricane Center, and it looks like it's going to verify that way. In its path, not just Jamaica, one of our beloved islands we like to visit as Canadians, but also Cuba is going to see upstream of this path some heavy rainfall as well. Haiti already dealing with heavy rain, and the Dominican Republic from the outer bands of this storm, Hurricane Melissa. The winds will be a huge factor. Those hurricane force winds, again, Category 5, we saw the wind speeds jump up to a strength of 280 kilometers an hour of sustained winds. I'll repeat that, sustained winds. So this will continue to also bring the heavy rain, the winds, and high wave heights as well. So those very susceptible areas that are right at sea level, such as Kingston and the airports as well, not as inland too, the ones that aren't. So certainly the top story that we're following and the major impacts that we'll continue to reiterate. If you're just joining us, we're talking about Melissa, major hurricane, which will have just a list of impacts here, such as wind, catastrophic, capable of total structural damage, rain, life-threatening, flash flooding with numerous landslides. The storm surge will also be quite high, up to 13 feet potentially along the shorelines. And power and communication, already hearing reports of power outages due to these outer bands of this system. Kim and Mark, I know that you have some more questions from our viewers as well.
Thanks, Nicole. That was great. Yeah, what is the best place to ride out a hurricane? I know you've been in constant contact with your wife's cousin who has to now ride out this hurricane, whether they wanted to or not.
Yes.
Let's just go to a clip with them first of all.
They gave us letters basically to say, you know, put yourself in the bathroom, you know, make all your preparedness, get it all ready now. They'll bring food as needed when everything does shut down again, because it's already shut down once. And they did. They gave us ration packs and they brought food this morning. So, but right now it's very calm. Like you can see behind us here, like oceans, we're in a little bay, so it's kind of protected.
Okay. So that's a little clip from them. Everything's good right now. But what, okay, so somebody who has ridden out 28 hurricanes and tropical storms, tell me a little bit about what people should be doing in this scenario.
Well, you know, so often we talk about tornado safety up here, you know, we're talking about Southern Ontario, the prairies. Well, a lot of the same things we talk about when we talk about tornado safety apply to hurricanes, because the biggest danger when you're talking about the winds, and I'm being very specific here because we're talking about the winds, and that's flying debris. So you want to put as much stuff, as many walls as between you and where that flying debris is going to be coming in. That means inner hallways, rooms without any sort of windows, because those windows could easily smash. Yes, and the best, most solid brick or concrete building that you can get into, and that's quite often the resorts when they're down there.
Right.
So I was talking to Jason a little while ago, and they were saying one of the things he said was that a lot of the people who are working at the resorts are actually bringing their families to the resort. That made me feel a lot better, because that means that that is one of the better built places if they're bringing their families into there. So that is going to keep them a little bit safe from the flying debris. The biggest danger in hurricanes is the water. So that means storm surge, that means flooding, and that means you want to be up above.
Not low.
Not low,
like you would be for
in
a tornado.
That's right. And that's why that's why I was emphasizing there's a difference between the wind and the
rain.
water,
Yeah.
right? So water is the bigger danger. You want to be above that. You want to make sure you're watching for flooding. If it starts to flood and you think you need to go somewhere, no, you don't. You're just going to stay right there. And when I was talking to Jason actually just sent me literally 5 minutes ago, sent me a shot of the stairwells, and stairwells are one of the places I said. It's an external stairwell. It's an external hallway. So I said, nope, you're not going into the hallway. You're going to want to stay inside the room, inside your bathroom where there's no windows.
Okay.
So that is the safest place when you're talking about that.
All right, so if you have somebody who is down there, that's the kind of information they're going to need. The National Hurricane Director talks a little bit about the storm surge that's expected for this storm.
As a powerful, Category 5 or Category 4 hurricane with the potential for, 9 to 13 feet of storm surge inundation above ground level near and wherever to the right or near where the eye crosses the coast here on the southern coast of Jamaica, with the potential for destructive wave action on top of that storm surge.
All right, we'll go to you now, Nicole, to talk a little bit about this. There's obviously storm surge, which is going to have massive impacts, especially on the south coast. I know that in rural areas, they're getting the rural school buses. They have at least 5 of them, getting people out of there. There's mandatory evacuations, and storm surge is why. So let's get into a little bit more about that, Nicole.
Yeah, we'll get into details about, of course, the impacts as we continue this, and just quickly talking about how strong this storm is. Again, it's a Category 5, wind speed sustained at 280 kilometers per hour, and that makes it the strongest storm of 2025. So it's up the chart. It's the strongest this year. We've had other ones that have come close, but this one is now dominating, unfortunately, as it inches closer to Jamaica. And as Kim mentioned, the storm surge is going to be one of the most dangerous things with this storm. You're going to couple that in with the wind and the rain. So with that, we do have the tropical warnings in place for the island of Jamaica as well as parts of Cuba for devastating floods, life-threatening storm surge, and extreme winds. When Jamaica thinks back about big hurricanes that have made impacts and landfall, Gilbert is the one that comes to mind. Back in 1988, it caused 45 deaths, and the damage was estimated at about $800 million. Gilbert is forecast to be stronger. It's supposed to be a Category 5, could then move to a 4, but it looks like it's moving, certainly approaching at that 5 category. Now, of course, back in 1988, there was different infrastructure. Our warning system was different too, so we're in a better situation for that, from that perspective, but certainly it is very strong, continues to deepen in pressure. It's in very favorable waters. Just reiterating the track again, as a Category 5 overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning, it's expected to make landfall in a very complicated terrain, which is Jamaica. It has high slopes, so that could cause some uplifting and certainly some heavier rain in some locales, but it also, as it moves over land, will weaken. That will happen. So again, when it's over the very popular tourist destinations of Negril over towards Ocho Rios, we will see some decreasing in terms of intensity, but the wraparound effect will still be felt with everything. Everyone on the island will certainly feel this. Kim and Mark, I think some other questions that people had were, how does this compare, or what other storms do we often talk about in the Atlantic Basin?
Yeah, someone wanted to know specifically what was the strongest storm ever in the Atlantic Hurricane Basin, or in the Atlantic Basin. And we know this was a storm that actually impacted Jamaica as well.
Yes, that would be Hurricane Wilma at 882 central pressure. That is basically that is the strongest. When you get down to the low 900s, you're talking about a very serious storm. When you drop it below that, it just becomes just a storm that's almost hard to comprehend. And I've been in Category 5s. and it did not have a central pressure of 882.
That's the thing with categories, it all has to do with wind speeds. It doesn't necessarily have to do with the storm surge or the rain or the mudslides or the impacts in that way. Category 5 means it's the strongest storm when it comes to winds. Melissa is a very powerful storm. We're still above 900 when it comes to the central pressure. Melissa was 882. Gilbert was 892. It was the lowest before we had Wilma. We have friends down here in Jamaica who are going to be riding out this storm. They didn't want to be in this situation, but that's what they're doing. Let's go to them now, your wife's cousin, who's talking a little bit about the infrastructure where they are.
I'm looking at the windows and doors. Obviously, everything looks new, like double, triple pane glass. It's hard to tell. I'm no expert, but they look. I'm hoping they stand up to whatever's going on. I'm hoping this is planned for.
Okay, so as you say, they're in a place that's likely safer than most. When we have these hotels, they're trying to build them with as much strength as possible so that the tourists can be okay, the staff can be okay. You're mentioning the staff are bringing in their family.
Yeah.
That happens too. It's not a guarantee, though.
Yeah, I mean, having said all that, I've been through and I've seen the aftermath of Category 5 hurricanes. We were on the west side of one of them when it made landfall, which was Michael, and my friends were on the stronger side of it, where we were. I mean, it was blasting, like it was just incredible. We couldn't see 2 feet out into the storm, and it did a lot of damage on our side. On that other side, the actual strongest side, it was destroying full-on buildings. Like it looked like a tornado had gone through there. Like that's how strong it was. So this is the kind of thing that we can expect for some of the lesser built buildings, resorts. Again, fingers crossed, these are built full concrete rebar usually because they know that this is coming. They know that at some point they're going to get hit by the hurricane. They want to get back up and running as fast as possible,
right,
and keep their people safe, right? And that's what we're hoping right now is that anybody who's in the less built structures have been moved into better shelters.
Problem too is that if you have friends or family in Jamaica, either living there or visiting, the communication is probably going to be very poor in the wake of Melissa, and we don't know if you'll be able to get in touch with them. Sometimes getting through to government agencies is the better way to go. Nicole, we're going to go to you for this next question because it's a forecast question. Another very popular place for Canadians to visit, Cuba. We know the storm is heading towards Cuba. What does it look like for them?
Well, there are warnings for the west side of the island where we will see it get very heavy rain. So this will be sort of midweek when we see it moving over Jamaica, lessening in intensity. So we'll see the category of it start to drop, but it will still bring very heavy rain, landslides potentially, flooding rains, absolutely. I'll take you back to the track here, and I'm just going to show you it moving over Jamaica, Category 5, maybe a 4, and then it moves and becomes a Category 3 as it approaches Cuba. So still a major hurricane. That's 3 and above. So we're going to certainly see the impacts there for Cuba on the west end. But of course, you move towards the east end of the island. You move towards the west end, and that's where you have some more of the tourist areas there. Haiti also seeing impacts from this. We also had a question about what will we see here in Canada? Will we be impacted by Melissa? And it does look like we won't get a direct hit from Melissa, but there is a low pressure system that's moving up the eastern seaboard, impacting Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada through the end of the week. And we could be tapping into some of that moisture from Melissa. So it's just going to possibly feed and enhance our rainfall totals for places, certainly stateside, but I'm looking at you in the maritime provinces to see some heavier rain heading into Friday evening, of course coinciding with trick-or-treating hours, unfortunately. So that could be the only impacts that we see from Melissa, maybe some higher wave heights as well, but we are missing this more than, of course, the Caribbean is. Kim, I know that there were some other questions as well that we had from our viewers that you were looking at too.
Yes, we're going to talk a little bit about the eye of the storm because, I mean, the eye is everything when it comes to what side of it is going to get the biggest impact. The eye itself is when we talk about an actual hurricane making landfall, we're talking about the eye making landfall. But look at this. This is what it looks like within the hurricane.
Yeah, I'm looking at this in kind of awe. I've been through multiple hurricane eyes, and when you talk about what it's like inside the eye, yes, it is completely calm inside the eye, as a general case.
Right.
You know, it gets warm, it gets very nice, and you sort of go, okay, it feels like it's over. And it is not even close. You're only halfway through the hurricane. If you're going right through the center of the eye, all the winds have been blasting in one direction, and then when the other side of the eye wall comes through, everything's blasting in the other direction. The danger to that is that all the stuff that's been knocked down, all the debris that's sitting on the ground, it's all sort of collected in areas where it's not going to go flying around if the wind speeds are in this direction. But if the wind speeds turn around, or the winds turn around and come the other way, well, now it's all airborne again, and it's much easier to be airborne, which means that it's that much more dangerous. And it's one of the things we've always watched very closely.
Okay, and so with the eye of this storm, I'm going to go to Nicole for that, but first I want to throw to a clip about the safest place on the island to be.
I would say from 80% of the people we talk to, they've all said, like, we've been through many of these. You're in the safest place on the island. You're at a resort. We have generators. They get back up and running really quickly. You know, keep your phones on, and you should have Wi-Fi. You're going to get updates through that. So they seem very, very calm about it.
Okay, Nicole, I know you're going to talk a little bit about Cuba again, and let's talk about where that eye is anticipated to make landfall. You've got the maps to show us.
That's right. I just want to come back to Cuba because I just said the wrong side for the impacts. Jamaica, the island, under a warning. So is Cuba. We're talking about the east end. Havana on the other side will not be as impacted by this at all. We will certainly see some rain, but not the same impacts that we're going to see on the east side of the island from Melissa. So the heavy rain is going to be inundating Jamaica, Haiti as well, Dominican Republic, already seeing some outer bands bringing that heavy rain. And look at that eye, such a well-defined eye here with this storm. And it's moving rather slowly, which is not great. You don't want the storm to move slowly over the island and continue to push the rains and the winds over it. You'd rather it move quickly, of course, in some cases. But that is what's happening. We've got it moving over Jamaica, that eye expected to move over as a Category 5 storm. And in Jamaica's history, we're reiterating this again, they often think of Gilbert back in 1988, a very powerful Category 4 storm that had major impacts for the island. So comparing the two, when we look back at Gilbert versus Melissa, that was back in September 1988. This is, of course, October of this year. They both peaked at a Category 5, but when Gilbert did make landfall, it decreased to a Category 4. So certainly both big monsters of a storm and record-breaking and epic, and certainly something of note. But it is going to be that eye that passes over the south end of the island, Kim and Chris. So unfortunately, that will bear the brunt of some of the strongest elements of this storm, as you can anticipate, Mark and Kim.
You got it, Nicole. This is a question I know that you get asked all the
Yes.
time. We get asked here at the Weather Network all the time. We are in hurricane season up until November the 30th. It starts June 1st. It's a lot longer than people anticipate. This is the time of year, though, when the ocean waters are at their warmest and we get this rapid intensification like we did with Melissa.
Yep.
But what are the ingredients that cause a hurricane to begin?
This is the interesting part. Hurricanes are storms born from the ocean. So they tap into that very warm water, and really what it's tapping into is the energy stored in that warm water. So it's basically running over top of the world's biggest battery to turn that warm water into literally wind and rain, etc. So you actually need warm water to a fairly deep depth. You need very quiet winds. I know that sounds a little bit strange, but you actually need quiet winds so that the nascent hurricane, the hurricane being born, isn't immediately shredded. You also need a way for as the storm sort of builds up and brings all the air up into the atmosphere, it's got to be a way for the winds to take away all that now cooled air, to take that away. So that is what's happening right in around Jamaica, and it's very common at this time of year in the Atlantic Basin to have those ingredients, and that is exactly what we have. And one more thing we need is no land. When it makes contact with land, it immediately begins to fall apart because one, it starts to have frictional effects, and two, it's actually losing its source of energy. So when they come on shore, do expect them to drop, and it's kind of amazing when everything is absolutely perfect to create a Category 5, even the slightest little disruption will drop the wind speeds very quickly, and I've seen this happen multiple times.
Yeah, we saw Katrina weaken to a Cat 3, I believe, or
Yep.
right before it made landfall. Not that that helped anybody.
gonna say,
and
yeah.
when we talk about categories, again, we're talking about wind speeds. And speaking of wind speeds, let's go now to the National Hurricane Director to talk about the wind speeds and this storm and what we expect as far as impacts are concerned.
Near where the core makes landfall as well in the eyewall, we're expecting catastrophic wind impacts with total structural failure near where that eyewall moves across the island, especially in areas of higher terrain. We could see complete tree falls in the mountainous areas and just complete and total destruction of some structures in those regions.
Yeah, that's the thing. We are anticipating massive infrastructure damage, home damage, whether they're in the shanty areas or they're in the affluent areas. It doesn't really matter. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously some homes are built better than others, but this is a storm of a huge magnitude. Nicole, we're looking at right now a Category 5. As you said, Mark, we're not anticipating it to weaken anytime soon. And if this stays the course, this is going to be devastating for Jamaica.
Absolutely. So, just taking stock again of the radar here, showing the outer bands moving in, pushing water and wind over Jamaica, as well as parts of Haiti. Dominican Republic's felt the effects as well. We'll take you to the track once again. So yes, it looks like it's expected to maintain that status of a Category 5 hurricane, the highest end of the scale, and then weaken as it passes over the island to perhaps a 4, and then move into favorable waters and maintain that status of a Category 3 on approach towards Cuba. Some of the biggest impacts we'll see is the heavy rain. This is the future radar, of course, showing it overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning. It's not going to be a good, easy sleep for anyone who is in Jamaica. Now, Kingston looks to be not getting as much of a hit as we thought with earlier forecast projections, but still, because we are on the south end of the island, that is going to see the highest rainfall amounts, locally up to 40 inches of rain towards Kingston, but maybe on the high end we could be looking at a meter of rain, 1,000 millimeters of rain potentially. And then we take a look at other islands that will see the impacts from this. Turks and Caicos needs to watch out in the long range through the week, as well as Cuba, Haiti, as I mentioned, but bearing the biggest brunt, unfortunately, will be Jamaica with this, with the winds, with everything moving over that island at the highest intensity for this hurricane as it approaches over the next 48 hours, or it's really 24 to 48 hours. Wave heights will be high. We'll see that high storm surge pushing on the right side of this storm. That is certainly the hot spot, the trajectory of where we certainly see some of the biggest impacts with hurricanes as they approach land. We have had questions about how Melissa will impact Canada. It's going to be a sort of indirect impact in the long range as we see rain moving up from a separate system. A low pressure system that is completely separate will bring rain and wind to Ontario and Quebec as we get to the end of the week. But we could be tapping into some of that Gulf moisture, that tropical moisture rather, from Melissa as it moves in and up our rainfall totals through the end of the week, and coinciding for places like the Maritimes with Friday as being our Halloween key trick-or-treating time, when we could be seeing some impacts with the rain. Kim and Mark, I think, coming back in to talk about other impacts with this. But Mark, some people were asking about tornadoes with this. Something that we haven't mentioned yet is, of course, you can see tornadoes with hurricanes too.
Well, you quite often see tornadoes in that northeastern quadrant, and that's usually where they show up. That was when we were in Hurricane Milton and Helene. We really had to watch for that because we had to drive through the northeastern quadrant of it. This one, it's a little trickier to say. You probably will be seeing tornadoes, but they're going to be mostly out over the ocean,
Right.
for the most part. But again, this is a compact little storm. Like, it's not massive. Like, I remember some of the hurricanes that I've been in, they're absolutely enormous. The eye is enormous. This is small. This one is tiny. So those areas, that northeast quadrant, may not impact the land for very long. So there may be some tornadoes in there. They happen all the time. But you may not see, you may never know. just because it's mostly going to be out over the water. But yes, those potential tornadoes can do tremendous damage. They can be a part of the arsenal of this hurricane and what it's throwing at Jamaica and, of course, at Cuba later on.
Let's talk a little bit about some numbers here. Super Typhoon Regasa was the most powerful storm in the world this year, but not anymore. Melissa has now surpassed it, and when we're talking about power, we're talking about wind speeds, we're talking about central pressure. We talked about Regasa as being a record-breaking storm, and now, unfortunately, Melissa is even stronger than that. The other thing we have to talk about is population in Jamaica. 2.8 million people live in Jamaica right now. Back in 1951, there was half that population. In 1988, and that's when Gilbert hit, there was about 500,000 fewer people in Jamaica. So, yeah, fairly densely populated cities. Kingston, for example, we know we have tourists in Jamaica right now. So there's a lot of impacts with this storm on people.
Yeah, and it's all about, we talk about real estate, location, location, location. Where that eye goes in is going to make a huge difference. And if it makes it sort of maybe around the end of the island or over on that far side, it's not necessarily going to bring the strongest winds into Kingston. That actually might be further over. That's the main population center. They may not see it quite as much, but areas like Montego Bay may really get impacted on this. This is really where we're watching, and that South Shore, no matter what, that is going to have some significant impacts just along that, because that's where the storm's coming in. That's where it's going to be pushing that surge. And that's also where it's going to be strongest, because as it goes over top of the island, it's going to have those interactions like I was talking about earlier, those frictional interactions kind of weaken the storm no matter what. Keep in mind, Jamaica's kind of like this. It's not a low island, say Bermuda. This one is going to have an impact on the storm. It's going to weaken it. How much? Probably not that much. And as it passes over, you're going to get those winds on the north, so you're going to get that north side winds. And if you're on that north side of the island, yes, the winds will be weaker, but you're kind of splitting hairs if you're talking about the difference between 280 kilometers and 250 kilometers an hour.
Right, and we're talking about a slow-moving storm. We're talking about heavy amounts of rain, as you
and
say.
And that's the other problem.
And when we get mudslides and landslides in these areas, then we're cutting off roads. So there's no transportation. It's going to be hard to get food and supplies to people. We're expecting that power will be out. We're expecting that communication will be down. Certainly people won't be able to fly in and out. If there's any significant damage to the airports, and there may very well be.
Yeah, I expect the first, transports in are going to be military. This is what we often see. They don't really worry too much about whether the airport is in perfect condition. They just bring those planes in.
Okay.
They're coming in. And this is what I've seen quite often in the United States. Now, how this transpires, how we get people down there. Keep in mind, this is a small island in the middle of the ocean. I mean, relatively. So you're talking about trying to get, say, you're trying to get people out. Well, they've got to go, you've got to get planes in from, let's be face it, it's going to be coming in from Florida. It's going to be coming in from the States to pick people up and try to get them out. There's a lot of things that have to happen to be allowed through, different airspaces. You're talking about flying over top of Cuba. Yes, emergencies do allow that to happen, but it does take a bit of work. So it is going to be a little while before we can start to get people in and people out.
Okay, well, hopefully there is a solid plan in place. I know because we are Canadian, the Weather Network, our Canadian viewers want to know about the impacts of this storm, possibly in Canada, because we do get these storms eventually moving north at times. So one of our questions, and we're going to answer it here with Nicole, is will this hurricane impact Ontario?
Well, yes, we were talking about this, and it will possibly indirectly impact our viewers in Canada. For Ontario directly, more so this week through midweek rather, you're going to see a low pressure system that brings rain to southern Ontario, northern Ontario, even some snow potentially through the end of the week, Thursday into Friday. That's the big L on the screen here. So that will be a low pressure system, but as it continues to track east, we could be tapping into the moisture from what will be Melissa at this point as it moves up the Atlantic basin, and it could feed into our rainfall totals, mostly looking at you in Atlantic Canada. Possibly some impacts on the U.S. eastern seaboard too, but I'm looking at possibly the maritime provinces seeing some higher rainfall totals through Friday evening. key trick-or-treating time, unfortunately. But we're, of course, going to miss the major impacts of this hurricane just feeding into that low for us in Canada. So that will be the major impacts for us there. Now, as we take a look again at the track, reviewing what we know, we have the National Hurricane Center track keeping it a Category 5 hurricane as it passes over Jamaica, potentially a 5 or a 4 category hurricane as it makes landfall. Now, as we zoom in and take a look at where we could be seeing this make landfall or the eye moving over, perhaps between Black River as well towards Bull Savannah. That could be through overnight tonight into early tomorrow morning when we see that landfall. But of course, ahead of it, you're going to get the outer bands, the heavy rain, some of the strongest winds, upwelling, storm surge, etc. So that certainly is a concern. But just taking a zoomed in look at who could bear the brunt of the eye moving over before it then passes over the island and makes its track towards the north, heading towards Cuba. Now, taking a look at the amount of rain we're seeing, the sort of purple, white colors showing where the highest amounts are going to be, and that's because that storm is moving over the island in the south end of it, where we could see some of the biggest impacts. Jamaica has a very complex terrain, and so part of that is going to play into who sees what. It's going to help in terms of weakening the storm slightly that we have the higher terrain. The Blue Mountains could alter movement, weaken storm intensity, but also increase the rainfall totals with this too towards Kingston and the southeast end of the island as well. So that's what we're going to see as this approaches in the next 24 hours. We'll be keeping an eye on it, and then again moving towards those waters and keeping a Category 3 strength as it approaches Cuba, bringing some high winds there as well as some heavy rain. So the onshore trajectory, Mark was talking about this, the northeast flank of the hurricane is where we start to see some of the biggest impacts as it pushes towards the island. Kim and Chris, let's talk more about some of the impacts that Jamaica is going to see with this.
Okay, thanks, Nicole. You know, we're going to talk, we're going to go to a clip now from the National Hurricane Director who's talking about the key messaging for Jamaicans.
Catastrophic Category 5 Hurricane Melissa on this Monday morning in Jamaica. Do not venture out of your safe shelter. Catastrophic, life-threatening flash flooding, numerous landslides are expected today through Tuesday. The wind threat is going to dramatically increase overnight and early Tuesday with catastrophic winds in the eyewall where that comes on shore, potentially causing total structural failure in those regions along the coast and also in areas of high terrain that experience the eyewall. Life-threatening storm surge, damaging waves are likely near and to the east of where the center crosses the coast early Tuesday. In Haiti and the Dominican Republic, that continued risk is there for catastrophic and life-threatening flash flooding, numerous landslides, especially across southwestern Haiti and the southern portions of the Dominican Republic, and that risk is going to continue into midweek. In eastern Cuba, heavy rainfall, life-threatening and potentially catastrophic flash flooding expected there. Beginning today and continuing through the middle of the week, life-threatening storm surge and damaging winds expected Tuesday into Tuesday night. Preparations there should be rushed to completion today. And in the southeast Bahamas and Turks and Caicos, hurricane conditions and life-threatening storm surge, heavy rainfall are possible by Wednesday, and residents in all these areas should be listening to any advice from the local government officials and their local meteorological service.
Okay. People are taking this very seriously, Mark. I mean, he is not mincing words with all of the alerts for Jamaica and surrounding islands as well. This is it has the potential to be a catastrophic storm, a storm that is going to take many weeks, months, perhaps, to recover from if it all comes to fruition as the forecast is looking right now. Things change, as we know, and you're kind of monitoring one of those possible changes.
Yeah, the biggest issue, or one of the things that that we're watching for a potential weakening, is the eyewall replacement cycle. So you will go through these time periods where the eyewall quite literally replaces itself, and it will actually weaken just a little bit as it's doing that, and then when it's fully replaced, when it's got that new eyewall, its strength goes right back up again. So if we get lucky, we'll have an eyewall replacement cycle just as it makes its way onshore. That may bring the winds down a lot. We're not talking about a huge amount. You know, we're talking about a small amount of small drop. So we're still looking at like absolutely catastrophic winds. I mean, if you look here, we've got winds gusts up to 300 kilometers an hour, rain 400 to 800 millimeters.
And
that
as much
is
as 1,000. I've
yeah.
heard the number 1,000 being thrown around. Now,
Easily.
it would be very localized. Not
Yes.
everyone would see that, but these numbers are massive.
Yeah, and then of course storm surge, 3 to 4 meters. Now I want to give you an idea. If you remember I remember Hurricane Katrina well. We just did a documentary on it.
Yes.
We were about 5 meters, about 5 to 7 meters of storm surge where we were, and that was absolutely catastrophic to the entire Gulf Coast. This is 3 to 4 meters. I wasn't expecting it to be as high as Katrina, even though the storm is stronger than Katrina when it made landfall, just because of the geography of the ocean floor. Where we're talking about the North Gulf Coast, it sort of slopes up. This, very abrupt, so you're not going to see that kind of like 5 to 7. If we use American terms, it's 26 feet of water. So that's what we're watching very closely. And then, of course, on top of that, you have the battering waves, and those can do a lot of damage, especially when debris starts to literally be floating in that, and it's just picking up houses and smashing houses into other houses. And this is what we may see.
It all sounds very scary. The people who are on the south coast, the most vulnerable, there were mandatory evacuations for those folks in Jamaica. They're trying every means possible to get them away from that very vulnerable area because of storm surge. I know you've been hearing a word that perhaps some people aren't leaving,
Now,
which is
yeah, now
what we don't want to hear.
Now, this is an interesting thing, right?
Okay.
Because a lot of people don't necessarily stay 2 days in shelters. They want to stay home as long as they can. The shelter is very close. They may be waiting for the last minute to make the run for it. Now, I am going to suggest, having gone through a lot of these hurricanes, that a little bit of uncomfortableness inside the shelters, just do it. It's fine, because if you realize you can't leave, you are now stuck in an extremely precarious situation. I'm going to say, get into shelter, do it now. You don't want to fool around with this one.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, let's go to Nicole now on the latest. I know you've got some maps to show us. That's it for my questions right now. I'm thinking we probably have more questions online that I'll have to look at. So, Nicole, you take it away, and then we'll see what our viewers are asking.
We have a few minutes to just close out this live stream, so we're going to sort of go over again what we know about Hurricane Melissa. Some of the wording in the National Hurricane Center's public statements include catastrophic, life-threatening, Category 5 hurricane. And what does that mean when it's at a Category 5? Highest on the scale. That's wind speeds that are very high, 250 kilometers an hour or higher. This is at 280 sustained winds. We're going to see catastrophic damage, roof failure, and wall collapse. Most areas uninhabitable for weeks or months. That's a mouthful. Now, taking a look at the rainfall outlook, one of the biggest things they're going to see for the island of Jamaica is heavy rain, which will produce the potential of flooding as well as landslides. But we also have a warning in place for the east end of the island of Cuba. Haiti also on guard for the heavy rain to continue. So this is the forecast of the rainfall. Upwind of this, as it continues its track, it will move towards the southern Bahamas as well as Turks and Caicos. So we're going to be certainly looking at that for concerning conditions as well. This is a title perhaps Melissa doesn't want to have, but it is the strongest storm of 2025 with those sustained winds at 280 kilometers an hour. So it is definitely a beast moving very rapidly towards Jamaica, and it is, in terms of the history for Jamaica's landfalls, possibly going to be the strongest on record. Gilbert was a Category 4 back in 1988, and it produced damage up to $800 million with deaths up to 45 people. So certainly this is possibly going to be even worse in terms of the strength of this storm, but we've come a long way in terms of the advisories that are put out, the infrastructure that has been built across the island I'm sure. The satellite radar of late is showing that really tight eye. I mean, looking at this really compact eye, it is just such a marvel to watch as a meteorologist as it approaches the island, the south end, the most vulnerable, as Kim was mentioning, because that is where we're going to see it make landfall as potentially Category 5 hurricane, as we have been talking about and reiterating here. We know people who have visited Jamaica. Maybe you have as well, or it's in your plans. It's a beautiful island. I went there to Negril many years ago, and it's certainly a breathtaking place. but we will see certainly damage on this island. The heavy rainfall and the approaching system looks like between Black River and Bull Savannah will be making that eyewall hit overnight tonight into possibly, it looks like most likely, into early Tuesday morning. Kim and Chris, this has been a great sort of info session for our viewers to answer their questions, etc. They can continue, of course, to ask us questions online.
Yes, of course, Nicole. And Mark Robinson, has been great having you here. Nicole, thank you for all of your insights as well. National Hurricane Center does updates every 4 hours or so. Monitor National Hurricane Center if you're very concerned about this particular storm. Of course, the Weather Network will be covering it from all angles on television and online as well.
Yeah, I'll be trying to take a look as often as I can, try and bring you sort of the latest on social media, just to let you know and see what's happening as this hurricane begins to make landfall in Jamaica.
Okay, thanks for joining us.